Evening. Uh, I do have Dr. Dan Kessler. Hi, Dan. Say hello.
Good evening. How are you?
All right. So there's Shri again, along with my good friend, Dr. Dan Kessler. As you know, we did like a preview of the French Open. We're almost at the midway point of the second major of the calendar year. And we will quickly go through some of the things that happened over the last week. One thing, personally, I kind of predicted Medvedev to reach the final, and he was eliminated by Sebut Weil of Brazil, and who fell to Nishioka. So one prediction did fall through, but I still have Carlos Alcaraz and then Sabalenka in the women. So, based on the uh, play so far, I've been very impressed with obviously Alcaraz and Djokovic, um, but also Tsitsipas and Zverev on the men's side, and then on the women's side, Sabalenka, Swiatek continue to impress. So, Dan, we're at the midway point of the French Open. Your assessment of what happened the first week, and then we can quickly turn our page into the upcoming matches for the men's and the women's.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with much of what you just said. Medvedev was, I think, the biggest upset of the first week of the fortnight. He lost in the first round. If he had lost in the second or third round, sure, but losing first round to the Brazilian, that's quite the shocker. So Medvedev going down, I think, was the biggest shocker of the first week, followed by maybe Sinner. He's a top 10 rated player who went down, I believe, in the second round. And then, the American Taylor Fritz, he also was the other probably upset. I think he had a tough time with the French crowd in the second round match. I believe that may have, weighed on him mentally a little bit in the match that he ultimately lost. But, hey, it's part of the game. You got to be tough mentally as well as physically to make it through the 2 weeks of a major. And then as far as, the other impressions, yeah, I mean, Alcaraz and Djokovic just steamrolling the competition. Alcaraz has dropped one set so far in his
Correct.
four matches, and same as Djokovic. Only he has not dropped a set yet. He's just been robotic and just destroying the competition so far. And then Kachanov had a little scare in his first match. I think we mentioned that because we recorded our preview, I think, just after the first couple of matches last Sunday. So
Right.
Kachanov had a scare, dropped, went to 5 sets, but since then he's,
Against
you
Isner,
know,
I believe against Isner.
oh yes. Since then he's been strong, and Kachanov's got a good record in the majors the last year or so, getting through to the quarters and the fourth round in almost every major. I believe he's been playing good tennis, and then we got Tsitsipas, playing good tennis right now too. So, yeah, so we'll see. We'll see. We can talk about some matchups if you want in a few minutes.
Sure. The one thing I wanted to touch upon before I get to the matchups, it's been a pretty disappointing run for the U.S. Men's side. I don't think there is a single men's player left in the bracket. We already have some quarterfinal matchups, and we have a few more matches tomorrow in the men's fourth round. So disappointing that Fritz, Isner, Shelton, as well as Tiafo, who yesterday I was watching that game against Zverev, and despite winning the first set, Tiafo he could not withstand Zverev's consistent hitting as well as excellent serving, and also uh, the overall play of Zverev. And he seems to have come through after a lot of injuries and very disappointing play. So let's see what happens. Zverev plays Dimitrov, but there's still some time to see if they could, he could play against. I think he could pretty much play against Djokovic, I think. But let's see. But before we get there, let's quickly go to the matchups in the quarterfinal. We still have a few fourth round matches to go, but quarterfinal matchups. We got Djokovic and Kachanov, I believe, and we have Tsitsipas and Alcaraz.
Yes. Yeah. So as far as those I mean, two great matchups. Those are, worthy of semifinal matchups, really. We're getting them early in the quarterfinals. I did a little quick research here before our conversation, and I just looking at head-to-head records historically. Alcaraz against Tsitsipas. Alcaraz is undefeated, 4-0 against him. I think they met at the French a couple of years ago. And then Djokovic and Kachanov. Djokovic has won 8 out of their 9 matches. So both Alcaraz and Djokovic are big favorites. And I don't see either one losing here. Djokovic, if I had to predict, I would say 4 sets, and Alcaraz either in 3 or 4 sets. I don't see him. I just don't see either guy having a chance, to be honest. What do you feel about these two matches, Sri?
Yeah, well, I have seen Tsitsipas this French Open, and he's been particularly very impressive. And he's been doing the same thing that Alcaraz has been doing, pretty much steamrolling opponents. And I watched Alcaraz today against the Italian Musetti, I believe. It was not much of a contest, but Alcaraz was clearly the best player. He just wears you down. It's almost like a Djokovic-like. I have a feeling because I went with Alcaraz to win it all, so I have to go with him in that. He's just too mentally tough. And I think I heard John McEnroe say at this age of 20, he's not seen somebody who is at that level, both from the power hitting, the touch, especially his drop shots, which work really good in the on French Open clay, and his serving as well. And then there was one point where he did a serve and volley, and how many times you have seen somebody do that in a French Open? So, and I think on the other side, I've always maintained that Djokovic is probably one of the greatest players to play this game, and I don't think Kachanov has been playing really well, and he's even in the U.S. Open. He made pretty deep run in the U.S. Open. I don't see him beating Djokovic. I think it's 4 sets in both sides as
Yes.
well. And I know we still have a couple more 4th-round matchups, which we could potentially see, like a Rune and Ruud.
Yes.
And then we could potentially see Nishioka versus Zverev, I think. That's my potential matchup, I believe. And what do you think about that?
With you, I'll go with Nishioka, like you said. And then I'm actually going to disagree and go with Dimitrov. I remember Dimitrov had a nice run a couple of years ago at the U.S.
Right.
Open. Got to the semifinals about 3 or 4 years ago. And he's a sneaky player. He's only rated 20. I'm looking at he's seeded 28, so he's not a top 10 player, but he's had some really good runs in the major. So, and Zverev, I think he's he's still coming back from that horrific injury at the when he tweaked his ankle, I think at Wimbledon right last year, and required surgery, was out for the rest of the season. So, I mean, he's obviously playing great. He's really strong right now. I beat Tiafoe, like you said, last round, but I don't, for some reason, just my gut tells me Dimitrov here. And then I like in the upper half of that side of the draw, the 2 Scandinavians, like you said, Rune and Ruud. I think that's going to be a great matchup. Head to head, historically, I looked at a little research once again. 4-1, Ruud leads that series. So I'm going to go with Ruud and Dimitrov on that side, with Ruud getting back to the French Open final for the 2nd year in a row. That's my prediction on that side.
Okay, so that'll be interesting because you have Rune versus Ruud. I think I'm going to pick Ruud if they both advance to the quarterfinals, and then since I picked Zverev, I'm going to ride Zverev right now. So it's going to be a Ruud versus Zverev, and then on the other side,
who do you have? Ruud versus Zverev. Who's your pick?
Yes, I'm picking Ruud. Who went to the French Open final last year, and to advance, past the quarterfinals to get to the semis, and I'm picking Zverev to advance to the semifinals. So it could be a Ruud versus Zverev, and the other one could be Alcaraz versus Djokovic. I mean, you can't ask for better when the French Open started, and that's the top 4. And what do you think?
Yeah, like I said, I'm going to have Ruud over Zverev. I'm sorry, Ruud over Dimitrov in the other half, and then I'm going to have Alcaraz over Djokovic in a tough 5-setter. I think it's going to go the distance, that one, and I have Alcaraz probably just wearing him down in that 5th set. But and then in the final, I'm going to take Alcaraz in 3 sets over Ruud. I think Alcaraz, once he beats, or maybe 4 sets. Let's say 4 sets. Alcaraz over Ruud. I think he'll be a little tired, mentally fatigued after that Alcaraz Djokovic 5-setter, and then he's gonna, I think, beat. I would say Alcaraz over Ruud in 4 sets. That's my final answer.
Yeah, although I'm picking Alcaraz to would win it all, the one thing um, I can I think would happen would be if Djokovic does beat Alcaraz, Djokovic will win the French Open. The winner of the
Yeah,
Alcaraz Djokovic is going to win it all. But
I,
I'm going to stick with Alcaraz, and then we both stick with that, and then let's see what happens. Right? I mean, we still have one more
yeah.
week to go, and
Uh,
the usually a lot of upsets, but this French Open, except for Medvedev, did not really result in big upsets on the men's side.
Yeah, not so far. And then one interesting thing about that Alcaraz Djokovic match, if it happens, I looked it up. Alcaraz and Djokovic have only met one time, and Alcaraz beat him that one time. So it's this is like you got the one of the all time great players with the potential with the up and comer who could potentially be an all time great. So trying to make comparisons. Maybe this you can compare this to like Sampras Federer back when Sampras's career was winding down. Federer was on the scene. I think Djokovic still got 2 or 3 good years in him at least. I think to go, but this you could kind of make that comparison, the old versus the new here.
Yeah, I believe the Alcaraz win came in Monaco, if I'm not mistaken. And maybe he beat Nadal and Djokovic back to back. And I
Oh
think we can go look it up. But let's see if that comes to fruition. Obviously, when we do the French Open wrap up, we can revisit my I would say if my memory serve right.
yeah, we can
So
have
let's
our stats guy look that up.
Yep. Okay. Yes, of course. And then let's quickly go to the women's side. On the women's side, a little disappointing on the U.S. Women's side, except I think we only have Coco Gauff and Pera. I think. I mean, only two Americans left. Pegula lost. So I think the one player I've seen complete domination like Alcaraz on the ladies' side is Swiatek and Sabalenka. Both of them have been on point. I picked Sabalenka to win it all,
Yeah.
but I know you had an unfortunate thing. You picked Rebekina, and unfortunately, she had her injury and she had to pull out. So, who do you think um, has the clear path to finals on the women's side?
I think it's going to be a 1 versus 2 matchup here. It looks like those two players are just heads and shoulders above the field right now. With Swiatek and Sabalenka, just they're cruising right now. Swiatek with the double bagel in her last match, and she's dropped very few games. Definitely she has not dropped a set, and she's dropped very few games along the way so far. So she seems to be all dialed in and ready. She's ready for another major. I think she's ready to add. I don't know what does she have. She's got 3 or 2 majors already. You could maybe correct
Yeah,
me on.
no, I think she did win two French Opens,
Yeah,
and she did win if I'm not mistaken, she won the U.S. Open, and I know Sabalenka won the Australian
that's right.
earlier this year, beating Rebekina. So I think they're clearly the two best players left in the draw. Although there was one thing which I want to bring it up. I was actually watching Monfils's wife, Svitolina, play today. Coming right after delivering a baby. Kudos to her. It was an incredible match. She won it against Kasatina of Russia in a tiebreaker in the second set. She had a match point,
Mm.
and then it went to the tiebreaker. Excellent match, both of them. Solid hitting all around. But happy for Svitolina as well from Ukraine. So I think to no one's surprise, I think it could be Swiatek versus Sabalenka and Alcaraz versus Rude. I think.
Yeah.
So we're both we both agree on that. Let's see if that comes to fruition. And so far, like I said, it's been a very steady. The seeds have won it all, won most of the matches except for Medvedev, and then the resurgence of, I would call it, Zverev
Yep.
and Tsitsipas is the story so far on the men's side. So, what any last minute thoughts before we wrap up?
No, I mean like we've said, it's been a pretty predictable tournament for the most part, and I just really can't wait for that Alcaraz Djokovic match on. I believe the men's semifinals are going to be Friday. I would love to be able to call sick into work, but don't think that's going to happen, unfortunately. So that's going to be the I think the highlight of this tournament, that match.
All right. So again, fun doing at the midpoint of the French Open, and we will do another wrap up after the men's final and the women's finals at end of next week. So until then, good night, and thank you all for listening. And thank you, Dr. Dan Kessler.
Thank you. Have a great week.
You too.
Bye.